welcome back. My name's Audrey Shantz and I'm a watercolor artist and a watercolor teacher, and today I just want to show you this simple flower with beautiful color bleeds and then a really nice dark background. Let's do it. Okay, let's talk about supplies for just a minute. I have a regular old pencil, but I don't like to use this eraser. I like to use a kneaded eraser, so I've got one of those here. It doesn't leave any shavings on your paper and it's just real easy to use. Plus it's like a fidget. You see how I can squeeze it? And then this is a 3" by 3" square of 140-pound cold press Canson watercolor paper. You can use any watercolor paper that you've got. And let's see, this is our size 10 Winsor & Newton round watercolor brush. We like it because it has got, here, I'll hold it up against the white. It's got a good, this is called the belly of the brush, and then this is the tip of the brush. And so this is what holds the water here, and this is what gives us fine points and details and things like that. So I teach with just the one brush. And this is the paint set that I'm going to be using today, and I can link that one below if you're interested. It's just kind of easy to work with, which I like. And then I've got some water and I've got a towel, or you could use paper towel as well. I just transitioned out of my downtown shop to a home studio, and I'm trying to get things set up here, so bear with me if anything's clunky today. Okay, so what we're gonna do first is we just need our pencil and our eraser, and the most important thing I'll say about that is to press really lightly with your pencil, because when you do so, you can freely erase, which means you can kind of play with it and make sure you like it. Now, I don't think this is the prettiest flower I've ever drawn, but that's not important. What we wanna do today is just get some sort of a simple flower placed in the center, and I like to think of it as just like loopy, like a doodle, you know, just these happy loops coming around. And first we'll start with this, actually let's start with the border. My friend Kelly from Kelly Blue and Zentangle, she does YouTube videos. She does her borders like this and I love it. She says, let's put a dot in each corner first. So I'm putting a dot in each corner and I'm going to connect them. So you choose how much you want to come in. I'd say don't come in too much because we do want to have space to get all of that dark green paint around our flower. And then we're just going to connect our lines, and if you make them a little wonky on purpose, you never have to worry that they're not straight. They were never supposed to be. This right here, this center is about the size of my fingernail. So if you wanted to kind of put your finger in the center and eyeball it a little bit, and I'm not doing it as a perfect circle. In fact, I'm doing some like straight lines in there even. So we can do something like that. We'll just count these petals to see what we've got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yours could be any number that you want. You'll get more practice going in between petals the more petals you do, but there's no rules. I'm gonna start. The one thing I like to say about a flower though is like this is the center, right? So all of these petals should be sort of directing themselves back to that center as we go. So try not to get to where your petals are kind of going this way instead. We want to use that as our guide. And then we'll just kind of come up and away. And if you can think of like loopy, and you see how close I got? Let's not get any closer than that to this border. Loopy out, and just as easy as you can make it. Just go light on your pencil and loose on your hand. Mine's getting crooked, so I'm kind of pulling it over. There we go. That's good enough for me. It's not really about the shape of the flower today. It's more about the watercolor technique that we're going to learn, and then you can make this, you know, 6 times and pick your favorite. Okay, I want you to make sure you like it now. In watercolor, when we add watercolor on top of our pencil, it sort of locks our pencil in and we can't erase it anymore. So this is your time to get out that eraser. If anything got really dark or there's any lines you want to get rid of, just do that now with your eraser. And when you feel like you like it and you're good to go, we're going to move our pencil and eraser out of the way, and we're going to move into the next thing, which is creating our paints. So we're not going to go straight into like get a color, go right to your paper. We're going to create puddles first. I am going to grab my brush, and first, the thing that I want us to focus on is light colors in the center, dark color around here. So we could do this as sort of like an orange or a coral with pink and yellow and a really dark green, but maybe for yours you go, this is pinks and purples, but very light, like cotton candy, and back here you go navy blue. So that's your own just personal choice there. But what we want to do at first is make a couple puddles up of the colors you want to see in the petals. And I want you to know we're going to be painting with water first, so it's going to lighten them up. We want very light. So I'm going to take my brush, dip it into my water, and I'm going to grab just some kind of an orange, I guess, a little bit. I'm getting some on my brush, swiping it onto my palette. I'm going to add a little bit of water, and now it's a puddle. Okay, see how I can move my brush around? We want something like this. I'm going to clean my brush out now, and I'm going to grab some kind of a pink. Now, pink is just red plus water, because in watercolor we get our colors lighter by adding water, but my set has a really nice pink. This top left one, I love it. And so I put some on there, I got some water on my brush and added it, and now I've got a little puddle here, and I think I'll do like a red too. So my brush is wet, grabbing a little bit of red paint, going into my water and back. And make sure you like your colors here. This is where you get to test them out first before you put them on your paper. I might do a little bit of yellow as well. This might be a time, if anybody has a spray bottle at home, I'll show you. If you have something like this, you can use a spray bottle to spray your paints over here. And I maybe did like 6 or 8 sprays, and I could have done that before I made these puddles. But what's nice right now is that you see how I made everything like shiny and glossy. It's also going to sort of soften up the top of the paint and make it really easy to sort of get paint off of there when we want to use it for play. So as we decide what we're going to take from puddles or paints, we want to think about how much water we're adding in. And I already told you we're putting water on these petals first. So we may want to take from puddles, and we might want to take from paints if we need to add less water. Let's get some colors for the center. Notice I did 2 colors. One was a light blue, and then I went back later and I added this lime green. You can get colors made up now if you want, because it helps you see your whole color palette in advance. So if you want your color darker, you're going to add more paint into your puddle. If you want it lighter, you'll add more water, right? Because that water is what lightens it up. I like that green. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to clean my brush, and I'm going to make a light blue. For me, that's going to be maybe this 5th one up from the bottom. And I don't need a lot of it, just a small puddle, but I do want to be able to move it around like a puddle. That's probably enough. It's not even very much, but it's probably enough. And then I say, let's wait to mix our color for the background. We're going to wait on that. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to give you your little map right here. We're going to paint these petals, and then we're going to dry everything fully. Then we can go in and we can do the background next. Nope, I'm going to change that. Because it doesn't matter. The way I'm deciding is what's dry and what's wet, you know. But if we've already dried this, we've already made our puddles up for the center. So why not do the first color for the center? We'll do that blue. Then we'll get into our background, and later on, before we're finished, we'll add these details around the top. When we know everything is dry, we'll do it last. Now, if I can remember the map I told you, we'll do it in that order. Okay, so I'm moving this out of the way a little bit. And the first thing we're gonna do is clean out your brush. And we're gonna do water. I'm gonna zoom in for you. I think it's more important that you can see the paper than the paints this time. And I'm going to tell you that I've got a bunch of petals. If I do them one at a time, it's gonna be easier and I'm gonna have more control. I could put water on every petal at the same time, but because I only have my drying time to play with paints, I think I'm gonna do a couple at a time. So I'll do 2. And I'm going to take my brush and run the tip of the brush along the edge of these petals, and then use the belly of my brush to fill in that center. And I just did 2 of them, but now I want to look at it. I want to make sure that it's reflective. Can you see that? And that I got to the edges, which I didn't. And then also it's kind of pooling. See how the water's coming here? And that's too much. So I'm going to take my brush, dry it on my towel, and lift up a little bit of this. It needs to all be shiny, but I want to kind of see the texture of the paper through it, and then I'm going to start playing with these colors. I'm going to grab from my puddle, and I'm just going to touch it to the edge. Now this is very light, and that's what I want on these, is a very light flower. But you're going to play with your paints, adding it wherever you want. And let's say that's not dark enough. Now is when you choose. Instead of going from puddle, you go from paint. You take your brush and just get the tip of it on here, get a little bit of paint. And now watch what's gonna happen. We'll do it in the same spot. Sorry for that shaky camera. Right here. Oh, so good, right? but we want to kind of limit that and leave it maybe towards the edges, because the point is to keep these petals kind of light. So I'll do a tiny bit more, and remember these are the only 2 wet ones, so that's the only ones I'm working on so far. Littlest bit right here, and then I'm going to clean my brush, and I want to play with another color. So I'll get some orange in here, and remember less is like less, and you already have water down. So as you add these colors, you're never going back into your water and getting a full brush of water, because you'll totally lose control. A really good reminder is that in watercolors, the more water, the less control, the less water, the more control. And like that looks funky and cool and kind of tie-dye-ish and maybe darker than I wanted, but I think I'm gonna let it be. And now I recommend maybe turning it, because you always want it to be what you can get to the easiest. And I'm gonna clean my brush out, and with some fresh water, I'm gonna do 2 more. Now, if I fill this whole thing in with water and it touches this petal, see what happens? It pulled paint right over. But because I'm using the same colors anyways, that's totally fine with me. If you want to avoid that, you might paint these ones and come back over here and let it dry, but really these can blend, that's okay. So I'm coming in with some more pink, and this was my puddle, so it's already watery, which is why it's lighter. And let's say I want darker again, I just got from my actual paint and not my puddle. And I'm gonna get this really lovely dark pink. So because I have yellow in these ones, I want to keep the yellow going. It's just gonna look a little bit more natural and like it's the same flower. So a little bit here. Now let's say right here, it seems like it's drying, and you see how that's like a hard line right here. What I can do is clean my brush, dry it on my towel, and I know it'll have a little bit of water in here still, and I can just sort of blend that edge like this, and it's gonna just bloop. It's gonna give a space for that water to go. Now I want orange in here, and I don't have it, so I'm gonna work quickly, because I like to say watercolor's bossy sometimes because of the drying time. The drying time is your play time, and when it's dry, your colors won't blend anymore. Now there are things we can do about that, but it's nice to just get it the first time. So I added a little bit of orange randomly. I'm gonna clean my brush, turn it again, and now I have 3, so I can either do like 1 and then 2, or I can just do all 3 at the same time. I think I will do 1 and then 2 because it slows me down for you guys, where you can play a little bit more. And when you need to pause these things, just pause them, because this part is really about being able to play with watercolors. Watching paint in water, I think, is like one of the most therapeutic things. I love it. I'm very clearly obsessed, so. Isn't it so fun? So we're just doing like tie-dye, and this whole thing is maybe a little bit darker than I wanted, but you'll see that once we add this really dark background, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be just fine. And I've got these last 2, so I will get water on my brush and load it onto both of them. Now when this touches the petals next to it, it will pull that water over, and it's changing things a little. So all we're gonna do is change with it. Like we're gonna adapt, right? So I'm gonna add some stuff in here, and if this paint moved and I really liked how that color was, I'm gonna come back and put color there again because it's wet and I can. So if it were to dry and nothing was going the way I want, nothing's blending, I'm getting frustrated, I could clean my brush and add water again. It's not going to look exactly the same as it would have, but it gives us more, like it extends our playing time again. I'm getting some more pink on my brush here. Gotta balance out my pink. So I'm just looking at my other petals now too, and kind of saying like, is there enough to balance it? Do I want any more color? You know, it's like got dark over here with my pink, so maybe I want some dark pink up here too. And I'm digging it. So if this didn't blend the way you wanted, you probably didn't have quite enough water, so think small adjustments, but you can add some water. If it was just drying, wait, that's the same thing. If it was drying while you work, add water. If it felt totally out of control, you probably had a little bit more water than you wanted, okay? At this point, I'm gonna just stop for a second. I'm gonna dry all of this so that I can paint next to it. If I didn't do that, then everything would bleed together and I'll lose what I created here. So I'm gonna stop and dry it. The way that we know it's dry is that when we hold it up to the light, we don't see the light reflecting on it anymore. And if yours bent up like this, can you see how mine's all curved? You can just take it and kind of roll it backwards a little bit. That's just because it had to absorb a bunch of water. Now I'm going to set this one down. Let's get into that blue, that light blue that we created. And I'm just kind of making sure my puddle still looks good. So add water or paint as needed, refresh that puddle up. And then I'm just going to fill in the center. Nice. Now if you look at it and you're like, oh, I wish it was brighter or darker, you know, you can add more paint to your puddle. I'll do that right now. And you can kind of darken it up and then let it be. Look at that bubble. I got to get rid of it. Okay, so this is wet, but all of this is dry, which means we can actually get into our dark green or whatever dark color you're going to choose. And we did not create that puddle yet, so let's do that. I'm going to put my brush into my water, and I used something like, this is like a very bluish green. I'll show it to you here. Now you need to put a lot of paint in it to get it dark, right? If water makes it lighter, more paint and it makes it darker. Now I can choose, do I want to use just this or do I want to mix it? And that's totally up to you as well. I like this one a lot. I'm also going to add another color green into it. So you just play with it first. Make sure you like it before you put it on your paper. This is your minute to, you know, adjust everything so you like it. Ooh, I like that. It's like even, it's greener and it's a little darker and richer. So see how big this puddle is. It's pretty good size. I still might have to make up more while I'm working. So remember where your color came from, and if you mixed, try to remember where that came from. Start with a good size puddle here. And now make sure you don't accidentally touch this blue. I think I did that blue too dark, and I'm not going to be able to do the lime green. And just to explain why, because this looks darker than the green and we go light to dark. So we might adjust. That's what we do, guys. Okay, so we're taking this one, and I want to tell you one thing about our brush first. So if I'm holding my brush this way, the tip of that brush is going to probably be bigger than if I were to take my brush and pull it very vertical against my hand, right? Because using our brush is about pressure, and the more you push, I got paint all over this brush, so I'm gonna touch my hand anyway. The more you push, see this, is gonna get bigger, bigger, bigger. So it's pressure. So if you go very light, you're gonna have very little you're gonna fit into tiny spaces, which is what we want. I'm gonna try to start kind of over here on one side. And remember, holding that brush up vertically and very light pressure. I'm gonna lean into the belly of my brush where I can, and I'm gonna start here. My goal is to maybe get back here before that even fully dries, okay? We're gonna come in here, get into these tight spaces by taking your brush vertical, really light pressure, and then keep it moving. Now you can see what happens is that if my green isn't like perfectly smooth, it's gonna change the way the petals look. This is like negative painting where we're painting around it. So you're gonna wanna clean up whatever shape that turns into kind of as you go. That's much better, right? And we're gonna keep moving. But this is a good way to kind of learn about what happens with this dark paint around a light color. It still needs to be a puddle though. So if you think about it like a puddle that we're moving around, that's most likely going to give you a really nice sort of flat wash. Okay, so I'm coming around. I may have said this on another video, but I have 5 kids, and my oldest 2 are home from college, so they're living here too. Usually during the school year, they're away at school, and it's just kind of chaos here. We have 2 cats, 1 dog, 2 turtles, a gecko. I don't know. So I'm trying to just embrace summer and all the chaos. We're just going around these petals. Turn your paper to make it easier for you, but make sure. So I touched the center of my flower, and thankfully it wasn't still wet, but I could have messed that up. Watch where you're touching. We're gonna keep it moving. Here we go. I've got lots of fun plans for the fall for videos. I'm looking forward to that. As I am embracing and enjoying summer, I'm also starting to look forward to some routine too. And I'm keeping it moving. So if I needed to refresh this puddle, make sure you're always working from a puddle, not dried paint. And I'm gonna keep it moving. Notice what I'm not doing. I'm not going back over what I painted. The only spot I may do it a little is right here because I had a lot first. I might try to clean that up, but you're probably gonna see these marks later. So I did that in its least amount of like brush strokes as possible, okay? And now as you see this, you might go like, well, these ones come in deeper than this one. So while it's still wet, if you wanted to adjust anything, but do it with the least amount of brush strokes possible and really try not to go over your work because it tends to make it look messy because watercolor is transparent and it kind of shows what's happening while it dries. We are at this point. I think we're doing awesome. I hope you guys are feeling that way too. If not, just do another one after this and see how it goes. I can't really get my lime green. I just went too dark with my blue. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just adapt a little. I might take this same color that I have. Let me think about this. Yep, and instead of doing that lime green kind of circle over the top, I'm gonna do some dots with this one. I bet you I'm gonna like it better. That's how art works, you guys. You just like adjust and then you like it better. Oh, you know what I should have done first though, is probably these little lines. So we're gonna do them and I will just work around my wet paint. So grab whatever color. So like once you're totally finished with this, clean your brush. And then we just need like a little bit of paint. Still needs to be like a puddle though, so it flows really nicely. And with that little bit on your brush, very little, we're gonna just take it. I'm gonna move away from my wet paint. And from that center, let's zoom in a little. We're gonna kind of go out and away, and you're gonna use the curve of your petals to determine sort of which way these lines curve. As few or as many as you want. I will not do it the same on every petal. You could. See, I'm just trying to avoid my wet paint now. I would have probably done this and dried it first and then done those green dots, but you know, I was, what's the word that we said? I was adjusting. Now you see I put my finger down here and you can see my fingerprint. So I could either leave it or I could try to match that paint color and just kind of go right over this spot. But the tricky thing is you're probably still gonna see it because see now this is drying later. Watercolor can be tricky, but once you learn what you can do, for example, I just cleaned and dried my brush. I'm gonna touch that a little bit. It's gonna soften that up. You have more control than you think. You just have to kind of learn these little tiny things. They stack on top of each other. The more you paint, the more you learn little tiny skills and they build up and then you kind of can't believe where you can go. I hope you had fun today with this one. Yeah, I don't exactly know what's next because it's summer, but we're gonna roll with it. I hope you guys are having a great time. Thank you for painting with me today.